I'd like to welcome the honorees, and also we have a few from our past Hall of Fame banquets. We had one 2 years ago, and that was the College Girls basketball team. I see Mrs. Hall is back there as a coach, and Dodd. And anybody else? Audrey from your group? Okay. Leslie? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I missed. And then we also have from our first, if you look in your book, you can see who these people are. The first Hall of Fame, I see Mr. Taylor's back there, Carl. Bobby Snyder. Anybody else? Wait till Carl. Carl's going to be up here after a while. Where's Bobby at? Okay. There he is. Okay. It's hard to see when you're up there. And anybody else that we missed in that respect, we want to thank you all. And if you look around this magnificent structure, and I'll call it that because you don't find many like this anymore, they're tearing them down. And if you look around, you will see all the banners that are here, and those are banners from our sponsors. And if you look through your program, you will see those people that have banners and those that sponsored us for monetary or otherwise. So I'd like to thank all those people, all the local people that have contributed, and anyone far away. And if you get a chance, please patronize those people, because it's through their support that we're able to have activities like this tonight. At this time, I'd like to recognize a few dignitaries. Kathleen Gannell is here representing Senator John Eichelberger. Thank you, Kathleen. I think we have a county commissioner here, Mr. Rodney McRae, somewhere. He's probably still eating. You want to speak, Rodney? Okay. He did get, I'll just go on. JLG printed that fantastic booklet that you have, and we'd like to thank them along with Jeannie Hollinshead and Lynn Foster. Brent Seville and his crew helped get everything ready here with the banners and all the activities that they did. It's been a little difficult sometimes to get up here on this. We don't, it's not a new facility, so if you look here, we do have a new structure. Bill and Audrey Hall contributed that to us. We'd like to thank them for that. Greg Johnson presented the PowerPoint, and Mark Wakefield helped us with that. I'd also like to recognize Jesse Topper. Jesse, where's he at? Okay, and Jesse's going to come up, and Jesse's going to help me tonight. And he'd like to just welcome you here for a moment, and then we'll get on with the show.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the invite. I always appreciate the fact that you guys invite a Bedford County boy up across the mountain to enjoy this great evening and great event that we had. I remember the one with the girls basketball team, and I'm really looking forward to being here tonight. And my wife is going to get a kick out of the program. I had a few people who mentioned the PA State reprehensive Jesse Topper. And I guess maybe there's never been a more true typo. I looked up the definition of reprehensive, and it said, showing anger at things that you have done. And I said, well, that fits me very well, so I appreciate it. But this is really, these kind of things are more than just a celebration of athletics. This is really a celebration of community. And one of the reasons my family and I love this county and I love representing it is because it's just made up of very tight-knit, wonderful communities all through this great county. And that's really what we're celebrating tonight, the impact on the community of these fine individuals, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to add one little note to Jesse's speech. We get along really well at functions like this, but come on Friday night, check it out, Jesse, when they're playing basketball against each other. It's a little different story. All right, at this time, Mrs. Kendall is going to give a special presentation, and before she does, I would like to give Mrs. Kendall a humongous. And Matthew and Lily, you know what the word humongous means, right? It's really a big one. Mrs. Kendall, a humongous round of applause, because this is why we're here.
taller than I am. Thank you all so much. I love it when my gym is full, and I do say my gym. In 2014, I actually got the surprise of my life when they brought something out and they disclosed it, and it said the Kathy Snyder Kendall Gymnasium. Unfortunately, my first reaction was, I'm not dead yet. So, you know, it's really hard. When my father called me one day after a Lions Club meeting, I could hear the tears in his voice. And he says, they're going to tear it down. They're going to tear it down. And I said, what down? I went to first grade in that building. And then I thought, okay, you got to do something, is what he said. No, we've got to do something. So that's why we came up with the idea of the museums. That's what we're here for, to save our memories. Everything in those two museums, and hopefully you look through them. I've got some stuff in the 1700s. And, you know, today is today. Tomorrow, it's going to be a memory. So we've got to save our memories, because if we don't, they're going to die with us. So anyway, oh, I forgot. Craig, go over there and get a book. Get the book, please. I forgot. You gotta go that way? Yeah. You sure? I would like Marcia Stevens to come up, please. The reason we came up with a Hall of Fame, when we were doing the museums, thank you, I started finding out all this stuff. And the one person that really was astounded, because it was in my lifetime, come on up, was Rosalie Hickson. Rosalie Hickson, this is her sister. And Rosalie Hickson got polio when she was 14, 15 years old. And basically she went to Johnstown for rehab and met a man, and he started coaching her, and she ended up going to the 1964 Olympics, Paralympics in Tokyo. And she got so many gold medals and silver medals in ping pong, swimming, shot, javelin, bowling. I mean, they were astounded. And when they took the Olympic flag down, they gave it to her. That flag is in our museum. Why? Because of this young lady. She's gotten it all together. I kept telling her, you gotta write a book. You gotta write the story. She keeps that thing so clean and so well organized and takes the burden off of me. And I thought that's really great. But the other day she came and she handed me a notebook. And it was the story of Rosalie Hickson. Now I did put a copy in there, and I have other copies if you'd like to look at them. But you know, I got enough, JLG was nice enough to make them in a binder, and it's, oh, I've been busy. You were busy. I read the whole thing and learned stuff that I still didn't know. But this is the story from 63 to 78. Doesn't tell Rosie's whole story, but those are the years that she competed in the Olympics. And I just thought that she needed something, because she dedicated her life to her sister during those times. She actually laid on the ground, held her wheelchair so that Rosie wouldn't fly out. So basically, I've got a little trophy here, and it says, Marcia Stevens, thank you for being such a devoted sister and a friend. Okay.
this. I don't know if that's a good idea or not to give Kathy a microphone, but we'll take a chance on it. Okay, well, now is the time that you've all been waiting for. Time to hear me echo. Let's see if that helps any. If you look in your programs, we're going to begin, and we'll keep it relatively in order. Our first inductee tonight is a gentleman by the name of Ralph Jake Fraker. Most of us here knew him as Jake. Jake was born on June 12, 1918 in Panisburg, Pennsylvania. He was the son of the late Ralph Emerson and Lillian Stinson, Carrie Stinson, and he married Grace Louise Fraker on July 16, 1947. Unfortunately, Jake passed away on January 24, 2010. Jake and Grace had 4 children. Kay and her husband Bob, Kay Free, they're here tonight and they're going to be coming up and accepting Jake's award. Jan Fraker and his wife Sheila. Dawn Black and her husband Rex. Del Fraker and his wife Susie. Jake had 6 grandchildren, and also I believe I had an addition here not too long ago. Is 6 great-grandchildren correct now? I think we had a new one added there. But anyway, Jake loved sports at an early age, and he was very active playing basketball and baseball during his school years. Baseball was a sport he loved the most, and he continued to play until a young adult. He played on many adult league teams, and many of you in here, you older people that are older than me, and that's really old, can remember you used to have the leagues in all the towns, and Jake would involve, and Jake found a game he wanted to play. He actually was a prospect for the Philadelphia Athletics back in 1947, and he was very proud of that fact, and it's at least one no-hitter that Jake pitched. He owned and operated Fraker Insurance Agency in Fort Littleton for 43 years. He also served as a Justice of the Peace for 22 years, and he worked as a toll collector on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. In his earlier years, he worked at Letterkenny Army Depot, and again, I'm not sure if he worked there or he played baseball there. I got some stories that he really loved to play baseball, and he spent a lot of time playing baseball. I'm sure he worked also. So Jake also served his community well. He was on the Fulton County Board of Assistants for a while. He was a charter member and a life member of the Houstontown Area Fire Company, and he was a life member of the McConnellsburg Fire Company. He was a member of the Odd Fellows in Fort Littleton, and for a while he taught Sunday school for about 51 years. And he was Sunday school superintendent for 23 years also, and that would have been at the Fort Littleton United Methodist Church. In his later years, he attended Freedom Worship, and that's where he was going out on Great Cove Road before he passed. He's probably best known to many of us for his support at the local sporting events. He was an avid fan of all sports. You could find him at basketball games at Forbes, McConnellsburg, Southern Fulton, Fannet Meadow, you name it, Jake would be there. At Forbes, we had a special spot for Jake. He always sat across from the coaches on the mid-court line. We called it the Jake spot. And if you remember, I think one of the pictures that it's in the program, Jake's sitting there with Allison, I believe, and he's on his Jake seat. We always called it a Jake seat. It's one of those seats that have a backrest. He loved going to games. He loved attending. People knew him by name. You'd see the officials. Officials are not supposed to talk before games. They'd be over there talking to Jake. Coaches would go over and talk to him after the games. He knew the players on both teams, and he would talk to them. One of his favorite times of the year was during the playoff season. And Jake loved the playoffs, and he even loved the fact that he would get invited to go on the bus at times to go to the playoff games. He was such a regular at many of the local schools, he was given season passes at many of the local schools here in the area. He also attended many football games, Southern Huntington, Buchanan, Chambersburg Cardinals, if you're old enough to remember them. Later on in the years, it was kind of hard for Jake to get to the sidelines to watch the game, and you would see him pull in his truck as close as he could. I know out at Forbes Road, he would pull in there and watch the field hockey and the baseball games, and he would view them from the window of his truck, and you'd walk by and talk to him. He's always had a kind word for you. And he was really missed when he was unable to come to the games anymore. It's because of his great support and his passion for our area, the local youth sports, that Jake is being inducted into our third class of the Fulton County All Sports Hall of Fame. Some of Jake's equipment and write-ups can actually be found over here in the museum. And so we would like for you to make sure you view some of that stuff. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Ralph Jake Fraker into the third class of the Fulton County Sports Hall of Fame. Since Jake is unable to accept, his siblings are here, and we have all four of them. And you guys would come forward, Kay and Jan and Dawn and Dell, and we would like to present you with this certificate and a plaque.
Guess this means I'm closest to the microphone. On behalf of our family, thank you so much for this. I know Dad had a big time talking to one of our ushers in my wedding, Bob's friend, Dave Consino. He was a state basketball official who officiated games for a year. Over 25, I think. But anyway, I know when weekend of our wedding, Dad brought the baseball that's over here, and he was showing Dave, you know, and of course Dave is a big sports fan too, so they had a lot to talk about. But thank you so much. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, our next inductee is C.Owen Fries. So Kathy, Mrs. Kendall will do the honors here for you.
Did you ever try to find out any information on someone that was dead? Thank goodness I knew C.Owen Fries. My first involvement was when I was in 7th grade. Everybody knows that Mr. Fries was persistent. He kept bringing me into the office and telling me my name was not Kathy. Nobody names their child Kathy. Go home and find out what your real name is. It has to be Kathy Jo, Kathleen, Catherine, has to be something. Very persistent. On the 4th time, I finally convinced my father, will you please call Mr. Fries and tell him my name is Kathy. Discipline. He always tried to make you better. I remember standing on those stone steps as a 7th grader, and I'm not going to mention who. Mr. Fries was always very quiet. You never heard him coming up, but when he came through, it was always excuse me, always used his manners, which he expected you to do too. The girl in front of me, when Mr. Fries got in front of her, she went, stuck her tongue out at him. He turned around and wham, right across. Definitely got my attention. My husband tells stories about Mr. Fries, about calling him in. Hey, Bill, You lose your razor. No, sir. Well, it looks like you've lost your razor. And then they would have a little chewing out. And then he said that he would talk for the next 45 minutes until Mr. Fries would say, well, I think we've missed enough class. I think you better go back. There's been so many stories that I've heard about Mr. Fries. I put a couple in the book. Ronnie Richards had a really good story. Again, about Mr. Fries making him the best that he could possibly make. Making him mad enough that he threw the shot and scored a school record. Wow. And when Ronnie said, I'm just going to quit school, no, you're not. That wasn't acceptable. Mr. Fries was McConnellsburg. He just was. You ask anybody that went to this school, everybody always says, I always said, you know, what do you remember about Mr. Fries? He was McConnellsburg. He taught. You had pride in being a Spartan. And we weren't Spartans until 1960. He started teaching in 1931, and we were the Blue Devils and the White Angels. A long time ago. And then we became the Spartans. But he was, it was funny because when I was doing the program, and I said something about Larry and Carole and Dawn and, you know, all the other people, and I came to Mr. Fries. It was very hard for me to say C.Owen. And his first name was Charles. And I have looked and looked, and I would like anybody that likes to be on the computer, see if you can find Mr. Fries's obituary. I found his father's, but I couldn't find his. So anyway, I have asked Mr. Carole Palmer to come up and accept Mr. Fries's award. Mr. Fries took Mr. Palmer to the state championship when he won his pole vaulting. And I thought it was more appropriate that Carole accept it for him. So we were going to induct Mr. Fries in the 2018 because he was an excellent math teacher, but he taught us more than the math. He taught us about life. And he coached everything. And he even did a senior play. So thank you, Mr. Fries, for pushing us to be the best that we could be. And I really, truly believe that Mr. Fries is the reason I became a phys ed teacher. So I thank him more for that. So Mr. Where is it? Where's the award? Oh, you got it. Okay. Who's going to say something? I'd like to. But first, I would like to tell Carole something. Marion Hardin? Marion Hardin actually saw Carole Palmer break that record.
That's so proud.
I thought Carole would like to know that so that you get together. But anyway, I'd like to present this to Carole in the honor of such a great man, C.Owen Fries.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the honor given to me to accept that for Mr. Fries. I know he would be very pleased to see such a great crowd here tonight. This was his home for a lot of years. And he handled it like when he was in the Navy, he kept it in a good ship. He kept the ship shape. And Kathy telling all these stories about how strict he was and everything. I remember him walking down the hallway here many a time, and you'd have a couple of boys out there fooling around. They shouldn't have doing it. And I've seen him grab him by the ear, just drag him right into his office, set him down. They'd sit there a little while and back up, and they didn't do it anymore. Everything, or a lot of it, is in the program of what he did, his pretty much life story with all these times in the Navy, and the story about how they wanted to get him a ship so that he would stay in the Navy, that he decided he'd rather come back to McCallsburg and take up where he left off. He had a lot of outside interest. One of his loves was the sport of tennis. And I remember him playing tennis in the old tennis courts right off the parking lot back here years ago with Tad McLaughlin and a few others. A lot of you people don't know those names, but anyway, he has a good friend back there sitting at our table, Dick Myers, who played a lot of tennis with Owen. In fact, Owen and Dick became such good friends. Dick had 2 daughters, and Owen was Uncle Owen to those girls, and he helped them through college financially. This was really great. I was lucky enough to have tickets to the Tennis US Open up in New York City and took Owen a couple times up, which he really enjoyed. And I think of, he probably holds the record for being chaperone of the high school classes that went up to New York. Seems to me he was the only one that ever went up there as the man, right? Yes. He took many women along, but as far as the man. Another thing that, I don't know whether you know it or not, but in 1936, he attended the Olympics in Germany and witnessed Jesse Owen winning his 4 gold medals over there. Quite something to see, since Hitler didn't think much of Jesse Owens winning all those medals. Anyway, thanks again. It's my honor to accept this trophy for Owen Fries. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Kathy. Our next honoree tonight to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is Mr. Don Fowler. Don will be presented by his son, Jeff, and Jeff will come forward now.
Nothing like having to be technical services, too. So, I am Jeff Fowler, and it gives me great pleasure to be in front of you. And it's kind of ironic that you give a Fowler a microphone and put him up front in front of a group of people. I did write notes tonight, which is not typically the way I present things, but to stay on task and to get this thing done as quickly as I can, I thought it would be best that I do it this way. So I'm going to read my notes to myself as much as possible so we can stay on task. I'm here to introduce Don Fowler, the third inductee into the Fulton County All Sports Hall of Fame this evening. Don was born in Reading, Pennsylvania, and this is in honor of Tom Duffy. Tom was my local history teacher when I was in high school, and this is in case you didn't do real well in geography of Pennsylvania, so I threw this up so that you could follow along. Don was born in Reading, Pennsylvania, and moved to Danville, where he graduated from Danville High School in 1955. He went on to graduate from Penn State in 1960 with a bachelor's degree in animal husbandry, and went on to work for Cooperative Extension for 33 years in Mercer, Northampton, and then settled here in Fulton County and made this home. Later in 1960, Don married our mother, Charlotte Ray, who was also raised in Danville. Don and Charlotte have 3 sons. The worker son, Jeff. I told you I had the microphone, I get to say what I want to say. The athlete, Tim, and the world-renowned lover, Kevin. What, Mom always said she had a worker, an athlete, and a lover for sons, so now you know which one's which. In addition to their sons, they have 5 grandchildren: Evan, Drew, Gavin, Dylan, and Lexi. Don began his interest in athletic fields when the 2 younger sons, not me, played baseball for McConnellsburg High School. The fields at the time were nearly unplayable. After one game, Don and Bob Morgan collected $5 from each of the fans to buy fertilizer to make improvements to the playability and safety of the field. Don wanted to learn more about field maintenance and safety, and in 1995, he gathered a group of groundskeepers and extension agents from around the state of Pennsylvania and formed what is now known as CAFMO, the Keystone Athletic Field Managers Organization. CAFMO very quickly became a state chapter and joined the National Sports Turf Managers Association, and it's also now the largest chapter in the country of the National Sports Turf Managers Association. Shortly after CAFMO was formed, Little League International approached the organization and asked if they would help renovate Lombardy Stadium in Williamsport. They wanted to have the best Little League field in the world for the 50th anniversary of Little League Baseball's World Series. CAFMO accepted the challenge, and since Dad had just retired, they asked him to serve as the clerk of the works, and Don had the opportunity to work with Grove Teets, which is a name I want you to remember, from Alpine Services from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Grove was selected as the contractor for the project in Little League, and this relationship and friendship would last a very long time, and you'll hear more about it in a little bit. After the new field was installed, kind of ironically, they realized they didn't know how to take care of it. I call that job security. After the field was installed, they asked Don to return to help maintain the field for the 50th Little League World Series, and Don that year assembled a crew of CAFMO members to serve as the grounds crew for the Little League World Series for the 50th World Series. Don, along with his twin brother Dave and his son Jeff, have been on the grounds crew ever since. Today, we coordinate the crew of almost 40 sports turf managers who have come from all over the country for the 2-week series. We work to prepare the 2 stadium fields and 5 practice fields, making them safe and playable for the internationally televised Little League World Series. After Alpine Services did the work there at Little League, Don and Dave traveled around with them to build infields across the country at many high schools, community parks, and colleges. They built minor league stadiums in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Nashua, New Hampshire, Islip, Long Island, Somerset, New Jersey, and Frederick, Maryland. Don traveled to California with Alpine Services to rebuild Anaheim Stadium for the then Anaheim Angels. Don worked 2 spring trainings in Arizona with the San Francisco Giants, the Seattle Mariners, the San Diego Padres, grooming their fields for Major League play during spring training. Additionally, he worked the Major League All-Star game in Pittsburgh on the grounds crew. He attended the College World Series. The last year it was held at famed Rosenblatt Stadium. And he even made a presence on the big screen. He attended the Major League World Series in Kansas City to watch his grandson, my son, or our son, prepare the field for the 5-game series win against the losing New York Mets team. And I emphasize the losing New York Mets team for my brother and my 2 nephews, Dylan and Gavin, who have been longtime Mets fans. And I have the microphone. In 2001, Don was honored to have the CAFMO Founders Award named after him, the Fowler Founders Award. The award is given to a member who demonstrates hard work and determination in his or her service to the organization. In 2007, Don and brother Dave received the Little League Baseball Friendship Award for their years of service to Little League International. In 2008, Don was honored by the National Sports Turf Managers Association by receiving one of the 4 highest honors the association gives, the Dick Erickson Founders Award. Along his path, Don has made countless friends in the sports turf industry that will last a lifetime. Today, Don continues to teach and learn all he can about field care every single day, from and to anyone and everyone who wants to talk field safety and playability. But no matter where his profession took him, he still returned back here, back home to Fulton County, to use his acquired knowledge to serve your community and make your fields safer and more playable. He and my brother Tim still maintain the Little League field at Lions Community Park here in McConnellsburg, which has been called one of the best fields in the area by teams from outside the county when they come here to play. While he is proud of each of us and all of his grandchildren, he says that he's most proud of the fact that his son, Jeff, is an internationally known and contributor to the sports turf industry, and his grandson, Evan, is the assistant groundskeeper for the Major League Baseball's Kansas City Royals. But it's ironic because son Jeff is more impressed with the fact that his 2 brothers are teachers and every day get up to go to school, to serve as mentors to kids, teaching students the values that our parents taught us as kids that will change their lives forever. Bigger than the accolades that he has received in his life around athletic fields are the impacts that he has made on us and on the community that we call home here in Fulton County. We made a family word cloud to describe Dad. This word cloud was produced by all of us in the family. I ask everyone to send me 2 or 10 adjectives to best describe Dad, Pappy, father-in-law. And every time a word appeared in these adjectives, it appeared here in the word cloud. But if the word was used repeatedly by someone else in the family, the word grew bigger in the word cloud. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the generous, caring, humble, reliable, baseball-loving Don Fowler for induction into the Fulton County Sports Hall of Fame.
Well, what an honor. A lot of people to thank for the opportunity I've had to be inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame tonight. And first off, I need to thank Kathy Kendall and her crew for putting this banquet together. It started a long time ago and has come to fruition tonight, and we appreciate that, Kathy, very much. Thank you, Greg Hayes, for being our mentor through this process. I need to thank Brent Seville and the crew for what they've done in here, what they've done for the athletic fields here at the high school, the best there are in the area. They also want to thank Lions Club for what they have done for Lions Community Park, for providing safe athletic fields for youth soccer, t-ball, farm league, little league, softball, high school girls softball, junior high baseball, pony league fields, taking about $20,000 to $30,000 a year for no thank you from very many people. Nobody recognizes the Lions Club for what they've done at Lions Community Park, but that's about where we are, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to help do what that park says. Another unique thing about where we are in our Little League program here, we've got a unique situation in Fulton County that I would match not to be anywhere in the country. We've got 2 Little League coaches in our system with over 80 years total coaching experience. Lloyd Garber's one of them, Buck Fix is the other. And I've mentioned it best, there isn't another Little League program in the country that has 2 coaches that could come up to 80 years of coaching experience. To conclude, I want to thank my family for being here from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. Most of all, I want to thank my wife, Charlotte, who battles MS every day of her life and still gives me the time to do what I enjoy doing with athletic fields while she's maintaining the home front. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Dawn. Our next Hall of Fame inductee is John Glazier. John will be presented by his son, Russell Glazier.
How's everybody doing tonight? That's good. All right, well, for all of you that don't know me, I'm Russell Glazier, John's son, of course, like he said. If you don't know him, you can get reacquainted with him at McDonald's every morning or at Johnny's at noontime. That's his local stomping grounds. He was a heck of an athlete back in the day. I mean, of course, I wasn't there to see it, but I can say when I went to Elizabethtown College, when he got inducted to the Hall of Fame there, I had the privilege of watching a video of him play in 6 inches of snow in the playoff game that they won. And he used to tell me back in the day that he played in this 6 inches of snow and they won this game. I didn't believe him at all. I mean, absolutely none whatsoever did I believe that. And he also told me that he played soccer and a guy came down on him one time in the back of the head and a tooth actually got stuck in his head, and he said it was gushing blood and all this other stuff. I didn't believe that either. Well, here when I went to this thing at Elizabethtown College, all that came out. All those guys told these stories to me, and I was probably 12 years old at the time, and I was like, man, you know, he used that stuff to motivate me when I was an athlete. Here I didn't believe him at all, and I just went with it and went with the flow. But I mean, my dad, he not only was a great athlete, but he's a heck of a salesman. He's the most hardworking person I know personally. He's a very persistent man. I mean, I've worked with him for 10 years now, and he's always, he calls me first thing in the morning, he calls me every evening to ask me what went on that day, and if I have nothing to say to him, this is the one thing he says, well, then you didn't do enough. And when I get home, the last thing I want to do is talk about work. But I mean, that man, he's the most hardworking person I know, and he never settles. I mean, he's accomplished so much in his life between businesses He's got salesman awards, management awards, boss of the year, which came from us. He also got father of the year, which my mom told me I had to give it to him because he's my father. And but it's fun to watch him. I mean, honestly, I won't mention his age. I hope all of you in here know his age, but he just keeps going. And when I was asked to do this, I kind of hopped at it because I was like, well, maybe if I do this for his retirement present, I can say it was me doing that speech at your Hall of Fame. But then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, he's never going to retire. So I'm going to have to come up with something a little better, so maybe he'll retire next year and kind of get off my back a little bit. But I love him to death. I mean, when it comes to this building, it's really special because I can remember being probably 6, 7 years old, sitting right over there, watching him play with all the older guys. And I mean, he was probably 20 years older than the people he was playing with. But he's still playing hard, you know. He's the smallest guy, just like I was when I played. But he just kept going, he kept playing. He had the ugliest looking jumper I've ever seen in my life. But they still went in. Like, I didn't understand it. But he always brought me back here, and this is where he took me, and this is where I was comfortable learning how to play basketball, push myself. He brought me up here, he dropped me off. I'd play, he'd go work, he'd come back and get me, and then he'd yell at me and say, well, did you shoot 20 shots from here? And I'd say, well, yeah, I did. He said, no, you didn't, you know, do it again. He's an excellent motivator. Sometimes he over-motivates, but that's okay. I'm privileged to induct him into the Hall of Fame. He's a hell of a father. He's a heck of an athlete also. And I'd like to induct my dad into the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's a great speech, Russell. No notes. I really appreciate it. Great. I want to thank everyone for this honor. And I have really 4 families here. I've got my regular family, and that most of them, a lot of them live here. I've got 8 children and 16 grandchildren. And so there will be a few Glaziers around for a while, I'm sure. And I appreciate my wife. She's from Texas, and she moved into this Fulton County, and she has been just great for me. She accepted Fulton County, lives here, and she really takes hold and does things for others. She's the kindest person in the world and does about everything for me. I also have another family, and that's my church family. They're here tonight, and I appreciate everything they do for me. I like Sunday school, but very seldom go to church, but my Sunday school teacher is here. That's Pam. I appreciate it, Pam. I have my work family, and they're here, and I appreciate everything that they do for me. And Russell, of course, is their boss. I work for Russell. He tells me what to do. And when I go in the morning, he says, hey, Dad, would you do this? Would you do that? Would you do this? I said, hey, you're taking over, man. What What do you want me to do all this stuff for? And I have my sister here. A lot of you haven't seen her for many, many years, Nancy. And my nephew, he came here from California. And that's probably the longest anybody traveled in this room to come to this. I also have my daughters from Philadelphia. They come down, and I really appreciate it. And I have a lot of grandsons and a lot of granddaughters here, and I really appreciate you coming. Now, my other family is, of course, my friend family, and we meet every morning at 7 o'clock. And they're a piece of work. I can tell you that, because they're all different, but they all have one thing in common, and that's they do pretty much what they want to do. And they're all like a microwave. They can't stay any place for 2 seconds. They're on the move. If they're in McDonald's and they're drinking a cup of coffee, they got to get up and go here, get the newspaper, go over here, and it's just like that all day. And in fact, one of my friends, he couldn't come here tonight because it was too late. He goes to bed at 7 o'clock. Another of my friends, he has to eat at 4 o'clock every day. If he doesn't eat at 4 o'clock every day, he's really grouchy. And he asked me what time dinner was. I said, probably about 6. He said, oh, I don't know if I can come. But he's here. Another friend of mine, he goes down to Florida in the winter. And I think he goes down there and turns around and comes back. Because he was only gone a couple weeks this year. And then he said, next year he thinks he'll take an airplane. So he can spend more time. Anyway, I also want to say a little about Cassidy Pittman. She couldn't make it tonight because she's sick. But she's the one that wrote all those articles in the paper. And I don't know about the rest of the people, but she was down at my business for about 10 minutes total and asked me about 4 questions. And then I read the paper and I said, Jesus, who's she talking about? And she gathered up all that information through different books, class books, and the library, and Mrs. Scandal, and she was, I forgot half of it at least, and I'm sure the other people are the same way. But she's a big asset to the community, I'll tell you. She really taken hold of that newspaper and writes some great articles. Also very proud to be from Fulton County. This has just been a great place to live. I had a great childhood. When I was growing up in Spade Power, he can probably relate to this. It was kind of quieter life here. There wasn't, of course, many cars on the road. It was a laid-back community. Our parents worked night and day. Most of them do today too. But there was never anybody at home, and the kids, we were just often could run all over town. I mean, we had a real good life. We could do just about anything we wanted to do. And we had these basketball courts all over town. Some of the parents that had garages, they would put these hoops up, and every Saturday and Sunday, we'd be playing basketball maybe against the people in one section of town and the people in the other section of town the next week. And pretty well self-made athletes before you ever even hit school. And we also had these jumping pits all over town. And we go out and get some shavings and equipment from these lumber mill uptown, and we put these jumping pits together, and we had broad jump, high jump, and pole vault, and we played the other people in town. And we got to know sports come together and got us together with people we didn't know, made us more competitive, and it was really a good thing for the community. And we also, in our community, we had some social events. And the social events were, we had a movie theater here then. And it cost 12 cents to go to the movies. And every night there was a movie. And one night it was Roy Rogers, and the next night it was Hopalong Cassidy or somebody else, but it was every night of the week. We had these movies from 7 to 9. And so we had our social events and we had our sporting events, but they were all pretty well self-made. And when I left for the service, they opened a bowling alley and they had bowling leagues all over town. So that was really a way of people getting together and getting to know each other and being competitive. So it was a great, great place to live as far as I was concerned. And the people come into town every Saturday night. Everybody come in from the whole county. I mean, and they was just busy, busy, busy all over. And the reason I mention this is it kind of relates to what Kathy Kendall is doing here today. She's really the backbone of our community as far as the kids are concerned. And I mean, we can be real thankful that we have Kathy and Audrey here in company to set up all these activities for the kids. I mean, they have indoor soccer, they have basketball, they have everything you could think of go on, and she has schedules all over the place, and it's just a great place to live. And I think if you didn't have this in this community, it wouldn't be so hot. And I think that when you compare my childhood with what we have now, it's pretty equal. I mean, it's really nice. And when Spade said something about, or people said they can remember when Spade pole voted and won the pole vault. Well, I was there when they went undefeated in basketball. And they played Greencastle in the last game. And Spade Power was a great athlete and one of the best that's come out of this community. I think we can really appreciate him. And it was really, really nice growing up here. And his son is real good too. Craig is the backbone of the golf club down here. He's done great things for the community. And I just think we got a real good place to live here. And I really appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Thanks, John. At this time, our next inductee is a gentleman by the name of James Herb Hardin, and his presenter will be Tom Hendershot, who is Herb's brother-in-law.
Hi, everybody. I look at this building, I look at this room, and 52 years ago, I made a jump shot from right there. No, it's great to be here. It's great to have the honor to introduce Herb. I was 6 years old when I met him. He was a guy across the river, okay? Not from Fulton County. The Hendershots had been in Fulton County for a long time, but all of a sudden he found an interest in a young lady who happened to be across the river. My father, like most fathers with their daughters, was not overly excited about this kid coming over across the river. But it didn't take long until I had another brother. Not a brother-in-law, but a brother. Herb went from Shepherd College to the National Guard, his ROTC, finished that stint, and then reality struck. He didn't have a job. So I think it was 8 days prior to the first day of school at Southern Fulton that the school board were looking for someone to teach and to coach. And that was the beginning of Herb's coaching career. It was 1958. So it didn't take long until I was involved in a formal ceremony with Herb, also with my sister. I was the ring bearer. I think the first coaching that Herb ever did for me was how to keep a ring on a silk pillow, okay, when you're 8 years old and you're kind of fidgety. So you sew it on and you make sure that your best man has a razor blade. But no, the thing that I look at Herb, I mean, many years, obviously, you know, as a brother. But tonight we're talking about the 10 or 11 years that he was here in Fulton County as a teacher, as a coach. His first year, Southern Fulton, I think there were 68 boys that were eligible for any sports from 9th grade through 12th. Okay, so that was his universe. And out of the 68, I think 60 came out for the basketball team. So Herb had to whittle it down. I think that particular year, I do think he had 4 managers, so that he tried to get as many people participating as he could. I can truthfully say that I've played 4 years of high school basketball. I've played 4 years of college baseball, and I've had a lot of coaches, but I've never had a better one than Herb. And that's really hard to say to his face, but it's true. I look at this crowd and I see the role models that have really helped me in my career. And again, it started with Herb. He was just out of college. Okay, he's now a head coach. Fulton County had really a wonderful tradition, and you're right. I look at the basketball games were just amazing. And I was young. I was 8, 9 years old. I'd get to ride on the team bus because I knew somebody. My job was to carry the scorebook for the scorekeeper. The thing that's neat is that I look over here and I see guys that created wonderful high school careers in our driveway. We were talking about the community. Warfordburg's not very big. I think we've probably been a population of 125 for probably 100 years. But we would get together And the good news is the big kids would let the little kids play. If it snowed, we'd obviously have to shovel the court first. But Herb was always there. Herb was always there with ideas, with wonderful ideas, always coaching. And he's always talked about to teach, because he is indeed a teacher. To teach lives forever with the students. And at this point, I've seen him time and time ago. He can't go any place to sit down and eat without somebody coming up to him and thanking him for what he's done. I've looked at a few things that he did for some of us in this room. Herb was great for field trips. One of the field trips that I remember, and it actually, I think there were 4 of us, was we were going to go to Huntington, Pennsylvania, where Juniata College is. I'm sure a lot of you know that. And I was going to go to a basketball clinic. It's like maybe 7th grade. I wasn't quite sure what a basketball clinic was, but I knew you got to play ball, so I thought that's really a good idea. So I get invited, I go, and there's a floppy-haired kid that is there. His dad happens to be the main instructor. It's a guy by the name of, some of you may know the name, Press Maravich. I got 3 years to work with Pistol Pete, okay? And I've got to thank Herb, because going, how did you know? Well, Herb was going to clinics. Bobby Knight was there. And he always wanted to learn. And as I look at some of the pictures of his teams, I mean, he looks like he should be a senior in high school. I mean, he was not a very experienced coach, but boy, could he win. And I'm not sure, I think we may have had, in this room from Southern Fulton, we may have 2 former athletes that are 6 feet or taller. We were never very big, but boy could we run, boy could we press. Herb would take what he had, and he would absolutely make the best of it. And the idea was always to do your best and to create excellence in whatever we did. I look at other things, just experiences with me. Lou Alcindor, Jabbar later, lost 1 high school basketball game. Herb was there. And he was dragging me, okay, along to see, you're right, Herb's, Hobart Barnhart also was there to see that. The other thing that I got to see, just again, hanging around Herb, the whole idea is always teaching. Anybody see the movie Glory Road? Okay, whenever the Texas Western team beat Kentucky in the 1965-66 NCAA, it was the first time, it was a historical event. It was the first time that an all Afro-American starting lineup won an NCAA tournament. And it was back in very, as a historian, interesting times, we'll say. There was a lot of things going on. I got to see that. My brother got to see that. He actually did a play-by-play thing for the university, and he initialed it because he said there's going to be 1 million people that have seen this game, and Cole Fieldhouse only handles 10,500. So we know that wasn't the case. Herb means an awful lot to me, and I am so proud of him. It seems like he's been on a tour here lately. It seems like every year he's inducted into a Hall of Fame. I think we were here, well, not here, but 6 months ago, there was another one. And I cannot think of a person that is more deserving. I really, truly appreciate Herb, everything you've done. I really do see you as my brother. And with that, I'm not going to take much more time because he truly has the gift of gab. So, Herb, thank you.
Wow, everyone stayed, it looks like. This is a great evening. There are a lot of great people here that I've crossed paths with. Personal, became friends from students, coaches, even opponents I have crossed paths with, and they're great people. What an event we have. I have a few notes here. I'm going to have to throw a few of them away. I think Tom cheated on me. Well, I have to get rid of that one. That takes up a little time too, doesn't it? Gosh. And I have to get rid of that one because she's going to mouse that. Oh, he already talked about you and your life, and then I better go through a couple others here. This is referring to my basketball teams and some facts about those, but I'm going to be able to cover them later with some comments. But I don't want to forget what an experience this has been with working with about 6 or 8 people to get this on the road. And boy, you touched already on some of them, and they have done a tremendous job. I've never worked with a better group, and I have to admit, I'm on the board with 2 other Hall of Fames. And I'm just a board member, not an honor student or someone that received an award. Tom covered a couple of things that I really wanted to talk to you about that's related to what he said teaching. I believe that every coach in every high school, middle schools too, should be required to do 2 things. Number one, they should be required to be in the officiating group in that area, and they should be required to learn the rules and take the tests and pass them before they do any coaching. Number 2, I believe that they should be required to go to clinics. Clinics, I learned so much about other people. I went to Abington High School consistently for like 7 years, and I made some of the greatest coaches in the world in basketball. That school was so wealthy and so just unbelievable. 2 swimming pools, 2 basketball courts. The football coach didn't make enough money to drive anything but a truck, so they went out in a week and raised enough money in the community to buy him a new car. Where have you ever been in your life where that has taken place? Well, I want to cover a couple things that happened to me along the way. And they're not necessarily statistics on some of you and your averages. I understand that some of you were talking about giving up 42 points and some saying you made 42 points against a certain opponent and so forth. I want to talk about you who were players. You were cheerleaders. And Tom's talked about a couple of those experiences that I had. The experiences along the way make you the adult you are today. And the experiences I try to give every student of mine, but especially the students that were available. And I had a couple experiences, like my first year of coaching, I wasn't sure what kind of an offense I could put into a gym of almost half the size. I found out that one of our players by the name of Koval could put his foot up on the wall and dunk a ball. Well, the ball was supposed to be out of bounds, and I tried to get him to change the rule, but he was laughing at me. He did not graduate under me. He was a previous graduate, but he came over and practiced with us a little bit. But he, in the meantime, said something about he'd like to go to college, but he didn't know whether he could afford it. You know what? I said, the next day, we're going to Shepherd College. And you know, I took him there. I got such a reward that I felt he deserved also a chance to go to school, the same as I did. He went, and he was very, very successful in Baltimore in the health field. And he's very ill right now. And he's going to be one of them to get one of our first discs. I also found out while I was down there with him that there were about 3 of my buddies from my fraternity that asked me how we had done and what our chances were at sports. And I told them, and they said, well, why don't you let us come up and play a little basketball with the boys and show them how to play different formations and so forth. I said, it's a very small court. We play mostly all zone defense. All know we'll show and we'll do a good job for you. So here they come. They didn't have any money for gas to be able to go back. I only had a couple of dollars, but it went. That's what your first anniversary money went to, Marion. I gave them that money to take their road back, but in the meantime, we went at that little gym at Southern Fulton that was once called Warfordsburg. And in that little gym, those kids turned out to be 5 of the 6 of them were players at Shepherd on the varsity. They worked with those kids individually. They didn't want to scrimmage. They worked with them individually. Any of you remember that? No one in here remembers that group from Shepherd College that came in and worked with you over Thanksgiving? Well, I didn't know that that might have been against the rules. But I soon found out. So when I found out, I apologized to the right party, I hope. And as it turned out, we also, that same year, took a trip over to Quincy to have a scrimmage. And when we went to Quincy, I see that coach often in a restaurant nearby, and he reminds me how interesting that was, that our boys had not been out of some of the areas. And when we rode by a place called Long Meadow, one of the boys came running up to me and said, Coach, is that what they call a shopping center? I said, Preston, yes. He said, I've been reading books about that. One of these days, I want to own one of those shops. I thought, my God, I'm from Little Berkeley Springs, but I knew that. Preston now owns a service station in Ohio. That was pretty good. I didn't realize it was that good. But success breeds success. If you can touch a mind at that age, it sticks with them. He touched his own mind by that visit. We went on from there down to halfway, and they had the first, what you would call fast food place. And we stopped there. And everybody got off and said, now what do we do? And we had to get one boy that knew, had been there before, and he went into the restaurant, and the rest just lined up like ants behind him, except 4 boys that they couldn't afford it. I said, no money? They said, no money. I gave them each $1. In those days, you could get a hamburger for 18 cents, a drink for about 12. We did pretty well. Do you know every one of those 4 boys came back and gave me their change back? Today, if you gave, well, we won't go into that. I thought that it was very interesting that one time we went to a playoff game that Bedford College was hosting, and it was Hyman and another school. And we were allowed to go for 2 hours of practice from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. When we left our school, our high school, we left early so we could get up there for the practice at 4 o'clock. And when we got there, the doors were all shut and locked, and they had paper across the windows. Black paper, I will never forget it, but you could see through the edges between the paper. And do you know what they were doing in the end of February? They had football uniforms on. Sneakers, football pads, jerseys. They were practicing football plays in the gym. I also found that was illegal, but that wasn't the topper. What the topper was, that night, we waited for that amount of time, and we said, we're going to come back for a game tomorrow night, which we did. The next night, my wife was very liberal. She allowed me a lot of directions to go. Anyway, we went back the next night and watched another playoff game, and when we did, a group of boys, we left right after practice did not have money. And I wondered, what are we going to do? Are there any places open nearby? No one knew of any place open nearby. They closed like early. So we ended up riding down the street, and a boy said, look over there. It says Pizza. What's that? I said, golly, listen, that's a new food. Do you all want to try that? Yeah, we were just hungry. So there were about 4 of us that chipped in some money, and we bought these Pizzas. And as it turned out, they cut their pizzas in 4 pieces, 4 quarters. And we each ate one, and you know what? We tried to take up another collection, couldn't get enough for another one, and that little girl said, I baked one more than I needed. With someone like this, and everybody got up in line and they shared that. They were taking pieces. I thought that was a real introduction to pizza. It was another learning experience. It was interesting. I had a couple other, let me go over them very quickly. One, we used to go to the Johnstown Hamlet tournament all the time. My younger brother went with us in these occasions, and we went up there to see people like the Matha Catholic of D.C. We saw Larry, what is it, not Larry Johnson, there was a Larry that scored 42 points at one time when DeMatha only had 39. He went on to the University of North Carolina and made All-American. Larry, do you know who I'm talking about? Larry Miller, very good. Larry Miller was a tremendous athlete. DeMatha would put 3 men on him. Anybody remember going to that game with me? You boys, how'd you all get on all the time? Anyway, we went to Johnstown at the Alhambra, and when we were partway through that tournament, we noticed things that were white flying through the bleachers. And we were sitting in an isolated area, and someone says, oh man, it's snowing out there. I said, well, guys, we can't leave this early. Geez, we just won't see all those good games. Well, we stayed, and we stayed, and when we left in a black Ford Galaxy with studded tires, and I thought I was a tank on the highway. We left there, and there was a John Smith, were you with us that time we got you home at 4 o'clock in the morning? John, is he still here? Was that you, John? We got you home at 4 o'clock in the morning. We got you in early because you know how much later it was for the other guys? 5:30. And you know, not one of those parents thought anything was wrong. We were in great shape. And we came through, what was it, 4 or 5 inches of snow, right? That was interesting. It was a learning experience for me that time, not the kids. I drove the whole way, and when you come around Shipway, I was taking double breaths. Anyway, we had an unusual experience in that time with the snow. And then another year, sitting here looking at some faces, we took the whole group up to Penn State to see West Virginia University and Penn State play basketball. West Virginia had a guy by the name of Jerry West. And Larry Palmer said, I want to stay and get his autograph. Not because he was bigger than everyone else. Everybody wanted to get the autograph too. And we stayed. It was almost an hour, at least 50 minutes. We waited outside in the cold, 30-degree temperature. Finally, one of the guys went down where the bus was, and they saw them coming out. How many autographs did you get, Larry? You got at least one, didn't you? And he, along with many others, got Jerry West's autograph. I bet you Larry still has that. I thought that was a learning experience, because they got someone that was very critical to the sports world today. We also had an experience where we went to Clear Spring one evening, and for some reason they scheduled us with a boys JV game a girls' varsity game and then the boys' varsity game. And when we got to Clear Spring, it was sunny. We got in and played the first game with the JVs. It was starting to cloud up, and somebody says it's supposed to snow a little bit tonight. It snowed not just a little bit, but by the time we got in the buses and got back to Wolfertsburg, we had a notification from somebody calling their home that the roads were very, very bad. If you have to, stay at the school. And you know, there were 2 carloads of girls. The boys got home all right, but the 2 carloads of girls couldn't get home. I was in hanging the clothes up, and they came in, and guess what? We ended up having those girls stay, not in the room that the principal told me to. They didn't want to be in the health room. They wanted to go over to the faculty lounge. I thought that was very interesting that they would do that. Well, that was a very important time in their lives to stay all night in a school, and they ended up going out and throwing snowballs that led to the interior until they had to clean it all up. Okay, there are a few other instances where we had experiences with our boys and girls, and I want to thank them all. I want every student, every cheerleader that ever participated under my 10 years to stand up right now, please. Special thanks to somebody I've been trying for a number of times, and he came the last time. I had a guy by the name of, oh shucks, Frank Plessinger. Anybody know Frank Plessinger? Frank, would you stand up a minute? I got him here in all these years. Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. With that track, he may, I better not say that. We had 2 of my friends that left, but we have a guy here that he's just had a tremendous career as being a teacher and a coach. And last weekend he took a wrestler to Richmond, Virginia, and won the national wrestling championship in his weight class. Would Mr. Greg Slick stand a minute? His winner went last Wednesday or Wednesday before to, I think it was Colorado, and then he went to Iowa, and then he went to Colorado. He's participating in the Olympic camp for wrestling, and he made a very smart decision. Even though he has a girl at Penn State, that wouldn't have influenced him, but he went to Penn State, as he did a number of years for wrestling in the summers, and he signed a contract with Penn State to be a wrestler there for another 3 years. Congratulations, Greg. At this time, I'm passing it on. What I did, what the people around me did, my little brother, my wife, my family, give to the youth their tomorrow. Thank you.
At this time, Mr. Miller, Ray, I need your help here. Where's that? We're going to have an auction right now. And if you look, I think there's a picture of it in your program. This is a truck built, handcrafted by Mr. Don Fowler. Is that correct, Greg? So we're going to auction this off. Now the money for this is going to go to the C.Owen Fries Scholarship Fund. And so we're going to start the bidding off. I already have, before we started tonight, I already have someone that offered me $100 for this. So, do I hear over 100? How about 120? 120, okay, I hear 120. How about 150? How about 140? $200. 220? Anyone else want to get in? Okay, 220 once. I saw this on TV once. 220 twice. 225. Okay, got 225. 230. Okay, I got 230. Anyone else? Anyone else? 230. I'll try it again. I saw it on TV one time. 230 once. 230 twice. 230 twice. Oh, I did that. Sold. Brent Seville. Thank you, Brent. Our next award winner in inductee is Frances Fran Fix. Fran could not be here tonight, so I'll be presenting her, and her sisters will come up and receive her award. Fran was born in Houston, in 1936, and she was raised on her farm, which is located right at the bottom of Houston, across from Keithway business. She started school at age 6 and went to several different one-room schoolhouse environment type schools in Houston, and her last 3 years of grade school were at Dublin Township Consolidated School in Fulton. She went to high school, which wasn't too much of a problem for her because the high school was located directly on the boundary line of the farm. The high school, the old Houston High School, some of you remember, is now the current location of Dollar General School. Fran was a good athlete. She played softball and basketball for the high school teams. She showed strong leadership skills, serving as class officer, and a very active participant in the school plays. She graduated from Houston High School in 1954. And I have to add a little bit here. I remember Fran when I was a kid, and they had, and I don't mean to demean them, but they had, when I was young, they had what I call the old women. They were probably 25 or 30 years old softball. And we thought we were pretty hot stuff. So we get a group of guys, just like we were talking here. We went out to the old high school and played behind there, and those women just kicked our butts. So it wasn't a whole lot of fun, and we were not called old women after that. But anyway, she went on after high school graduation. She went to the University of Pennsylvania for the school of nursing for 1 year. Then she got married to Jerry a lot, and they had 3 children, David, Lori, and Lyra. Jerry was a military man, and so they traveled a lot, and they spent time in about 8 different states in the United States, as well as a 3-year stint in England. And after the challenge period years, Fran returned to Pennsylvania and became a very active in softball, volleyball, skiing, racing cars. She also opened up a beauty shop, and when Fran became eligible to participate in the senior games, she was in her glory. She competed in the 200-meter dash, 100-meter dash, running long jump softball. She competed in softball tournaments in D.C., in the Washington State, in New York, in Maryland, Texas, Louisiana, Pennsylvania. There was a softball game Fran tried to find it. She used to travel back and forth to Harrisburg several times a week for practices. She loved to compete at the senior games at Shippensburg University. If you've ever been there, it's a pretty amazing event. It's still held now, we had to believe. She not only liked to compete, but she was very successful. She won a gold medal in basketball competition, silver medal in the 100-meter dash, and in fact, Fran won a total of 42 medals over a 15-year playing career in the Senior Olympics. Fran continued to be active in softball, not only in the senior games, but she went on to win trophies at Maryland and Pennsylvania. Her softball teams also competed in the National Senior Olympics, and they won many games in Kentucky. She was the only pitcher, man or woman, to throw a no-hitter in slow-pitch softball at that particular time. As a result of her many years of success in softball, she was inducted into the Softball National Hall of Fame in September 2008. The Softball Hall of Fame is located in Mustang, Oklahoma, and the induction ceremonies were held in Gallatin, Tennessee. More than 1,000 players and guests were present to see Fran inducted into one of the most exclusive organizations in this country. Only 6 players were selected for the class of 2006, and there were thousands of active retired women's softball players throughout the United States at that time. The induction, the induction remarks for Fran were presented by her son David and her husband Jared. She was presented a beautiful Hall of Fame ring and an attractive Hall of Fame plaque by director Ridge Hooks in the key to the city of Gallatin. Unfortunately, in 2011, Fran suffered a stroke and she had to have some surgery. This was a very difficult time in her life, and at that time she ended up moving to Clearfield County, I believe, where she is still residing now. She was able to continue hunting until 2013. Fran is being inducted into our 3rd class of the Fulton County All Sports Hall of Fame because of her many achievements her entire lifetime of sports. She also enjoyed hunting, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, ice skating, horseback riding, and driving race cars. And if you look in your program, there's actually a picture of one of her race cars that she drove, and she competed on a quarter-mile track. Fran urges everyone, especially young girls and women, to never stop playing. It keeps you mentally alert and young. At this time, I'd like to call her sisters, Loie Clark and Nancy Henry, forward to accept Fran's award.
Thank you.
Okay, our next Hall of Fame inductee is a young lady by the name of Carole Palmer. Carole will be presented by friend, coaching nemesis, and I'm not sure what all, Audrey Hall.
Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Cutchall, and thank you all for your attendance to honor all 8 inductees this evening. Welcome to the old McConnellsburg High School gym. It's quite an honor to be asked by Carole Ritz Palmer to present her Hall of Fame award tonight. She has been a friend from the time I met her, and until tonight, we're still friends. We've had many good county rivalry basketball games. She and I share a passion for basketball that very few people share, to have done as many years of coaching that Carole and Craig Cutchall up here and I have combined with the 3 of us in Fulton County. She's such a positive role model. She's been a wonderful, wonderful leader in women's sports, not only in Fulton County, but wherever she goes. I was in 11th grade at Southern Huntington County High School. I did not play basketball in Fulton County. Carole played at Southern Fulton. Craig played at Forbes Road. I'm an out-of-towner, out-of-the-county woman. Got a job here, and that's when I got to really get to know Carole. 1966, I was in 11th grade, walked into the nice Southern Fulton Gymnasium. She beat us in a close game. I pulled my jersey up because the tears were rolling and didn't want anybody to see them. And she came around and she made, after we shook hands, you know, you do after the game, nice game, nice game. It's not nice when you lose, but nice game, nice game. Coach Palmer, in her first year, she was a rookie coach. We were the victims of her first 10 games she won. She'd come in as a rookie and won the first 10 games. Carole came around, she said, "Number 15, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You played a great game," and shook my hand. She took that extra step to encourage a upset, crying kid at Southern Huntington went home the losers. 1971, I'm the rookie coach here at McConnellsburg. She comes into this very gym. she beats me again. That Carole Palmer, I just couldn't get around her. She had a very well-established program. We've had good county rivalry games, a lot of good times. Then one day did come when Carole's over there on the bench on the other side, and we just reminisced tonight. She looked over and she said, "Do you remember when I waved the white hanky?" There were games when Carole was saying, "Back off." And then there were games when I was saying, "Oh, Carole, please take that press off." In the state championship in 1991, she gave us the scare when they stalled the ball, and she kept the low-scoring game at Southern Fulton in the regular season. That was one game that we almost did not come out 31-0. It could have been a 30-1 because Coach Palmer knew how to do it, how to defend us, and she almost beat the Lady Spartans that night. We didn't pull it out till the fourth quarter. Oh, I could just play basketball forever. I'll move on here. In our county rivalry games, we always played a hard 32 minutes and sometimes overtime, but we always left the court as friends. And if you read the tribute that Craig Cutchall and I wrote in your program, it says, regardless of the game outcome, we rival Fulton County coaches, respectfully shook hands, wished the other one a good season, and we left the gym as friends. And that's been a lifetime pleasure to serve with Craig Cutchall, Forbes Road Lady Cardinals, Carole Palmer, Southern Fulton Lady Indians, and of course our McConnellsburg High School Lady Spartans. Now I know we don't look this old. Craig has more years than all of us. He coached 35. I only coached 32. And Carole, somewhere she comes in there, they add it up and make it 91 years of coaching between Coach Palmer, Coach Hall, and Coach Cutchall in this wonderful county of Fulton County. 91 years of coaching. I couldn't ask for two better nemesis, as Craig Cutchall called me, but they've been wonderful rivalries. And you know what the good thing was? We always shared scouting reports. Mr. Leonard, shut your ears. Paul Leonard, would you raise your hand, please? He is our District 5 PIAA chairman, and we're honored to have him with us this evening. But back in the day, when Carole won that first Fulton County District 5 Lady Indian, I see, wave your hand if you were on that team. Woo! Look at the girls that brought home the first District 5 championship to Fulton County. Back then, Mr. Leonard, we got one team out of the county, and Carole and Craig and I know a lot of years the best two teams in the district that should have been playing for the championship were right here. But that didn't happen. Bedford County got a champion, Somerset got a champion, Fulton got a champion. And we are blessed when you walk in that gym and look in your program. 1975, Carole Palmer and the Lady Indians brought home the first district championship. Now, Craig and I got ours later, but that wasn't like, we didn't get the first one, Craig. So Carole has one up on us there. But she's just been such a wonderful role model to so many of us and you as players. And later years, when one of my former players came back to be my assistant, Dot Doyle, we were ready for the playoffs. We're going to Somerset High School. We're going to scout. And through phone calls or something, we always exchanged videotapes and scouting reports. I said to Carole, well, Dot and I are going to Somerset. We're going to be playing, I think, Myersdale, and you're going to be playing Rockwood. You want to go with us? Now, you've got to be brave to get in the car with Audrey Hall and Dot Doyle. Let me tell you, right, Jeff and Bill? Off we went. We convinced Carole to go with us. I'm up there with the big old VHS camera, taping it all. Made Carole a copy of the game tape. Dot's over there writing everything down. Carole's got her clipboard. I think we intimidated the poor girl. I know Larry said she couldn't believe how nuts we were. Now, he didn't use the word nuts, but that's what he meant. How passionate we were and how detailed we were about it. Now, Mr. Leonard, shut your ears again. I used to be able, because I worked with a lot of these people at UPJ summer camps and around, be able to get scouting tapes. And when Craig or Carole didn't have a tape, I hooked them up. And when I didn't have a tape, they hooked me up. Did those tapes help, Craig? In 90, when your daughter Courtney memorized one tape I had, Courtney come back and told me after they won the district championship, that tape did it. I knew what we had to do defensively, and it brought Forbes Road. So the county stuck together. Not when we played each other, we played the rivalries, but it was always a good one. I appreciate Carole Palmer and her example in lady sports, and all that she's done. She's a mentor again to many athletes and students. And I'd like to read Margie McGuire, a fellow teammate's tribute in your program. Carole Palmer, quiet and giving Christian for her teammates and later her players who are now her friends. Carole, by her example, encouraged, this is it ladies, come on, respect, honesty, giving, patience, and honing of skills for her players. Kathy Kendall and I and a few others never heard the word honing, but we learned that word here in this tribute, and never too old to learn a new vocab word. Winning was always the goal, but not at the cost of other players. Your play on and off the court should exemplify Christian actions. Carole was and Carole is an example of all these attributes. Carole Palmer, you are the top girl here. One more thing, and that's as a parent, not just her Christian example, but Dr. Brett Palmer could not be with us tonight, their youngest son, and Chris has a tribute at the end of Larry's coming up next. Dr. Brett Palmer is covering the emergency room in Fort Lauderdale tonight because one of his fellow physicians is in Washington, D.C. Her daughter was one of the 17 victims in the Parkland shooting. President Trump has him in D.C. He's not here tonight because he's covering for somebody else that his fellow one could go to D.C. So that's the kind of kids these Palmers have raised up. I was a young child when my parents were coaching. At that time, it was hard to appreciate my good fortune. Learned the importance of determination and desire to win, strive to overcome adversity and conflict, and at times defeat. I witnessed the payoff of countless hours of hard work leading to championships. The values, come on parents, it's all about what values do we pass on to these kids. The values instilled in me by my parents didn't have to be verbalized. They demonstrated these things on and off the court. I hope I can impart these same characteristics upon my own children. Thank you very much, Fulton County Hall of Fame, for honoring my parents. Miss Carole Palmer, congratulations.
I think I died. You only hear this when you die. Audrey and Craig again. Nobody wanted to win more than we did, and we were always friends, and I really appreciated the friendship and the good sportsmanship that we shared. So that meant a lot to me. Thanks to some people here. Thanks first to my husband. Never one time after I lost did he say, what you should have done. And there were many times I should have done things, but he never, ever said that. Thanks to my brother, taught me how to do layups, spurred me on to want to play basketball. Thanks to my assistant who's passed away a couple years ago, Lucy Sterner. We just commented that she would have loved this. She'd be chuckling and laughing and just thoroughly enjoy being with the girls. She was a loyal, loved working with the kids, and a very loyal assistant. I had 2 stints of coaching. I coached till my second son was born, 79. I quit. A lot of tears. I don't know if you kids remember, a lot of tears when I quit. For me, not for them, but for me. And took some time off and raised my son, then went another stint of coaching and quit again. My son entered junior high, and you can understand that, why I need to be home. So being a housewife and being a mother came first. Thanks to a lot of people. It wasn't me at all. I looked at some people here who came before me. Marion, Iris, we talked about that. They played, the tradition of basketball was there before I came. I didn't do anything. It was already there. I can remember, they were stars. I can remember shooting that 2-hand set shot, playing 3 people on each side of the court. You allowed 3 dribbles, couldn't cross the center line. You had 3 forwards, 3 guards. So the tradition was there. And I talked to another student, Brenda here, who said she was in that transition time when we started going from 3 on each side of the court, the rovers. You'd have 1 rover, and then you'd have 2 rovers. And sometimes we didn't know what we were playing. We didn't, what we playing tonight. So, big change in basketball. The other assistant I had was Trudy Gordon. She was really had done a good job also. Teachers, thank you for being caring about kids getting home at 11 o'clock at night. A lot of students, you see them with a flashlight on the bus studying for a test. The kids were conscientious before a game in the cafeteria sitting and studying, and teachers were aware of this, how much time they spent. Bus drivers, they were important to us, getting there safely. We went up Townhill Mountain one night with no lights. At Everett one time, we had to push the bus to get it started. Hit debris one time in the road. A truck dropped debris, and we hit it, and had to get a truck driver pull our fender out so we could get home. But we always got home safely. So our bus drivers were important to us. Cheerleaders, thanks to cheerleaders. We gave them a hard time, didn't we, players? So we thank them for putting up with us. Of course, my most important people were my players, my managers. I had great managers, some of the best. They helped keep me organized, things I didn't have to think about. I really liked some of my managers. One manager I want to mention, as you saw in the paper that you have, Marlinda Shriver. I think Marilyn, I don't know her name, North taught here. Her sister was a great singer, and I requested her to sing How Great Thou Art one night. And so that became a tradition, that we would sing How Great Thou Art. Everything was dead quiet, no one would talk. And I appreciated that so much from my players, because that meant a lot to me. It wasn't, at the end of the day, as they say, this was what was important. You know, we wanted to win. Nothing more I wanted worse than to win, but that was what was important. All my teams were important to me. It didn't matter whether we had and there were times we had losing season. They were all important. There was always a learning experience. They all had a personality. They all had a unique character. There was always things that we shared. It wasn't always the winning. It was things you shared, and all the coaches know this. You share a lot of things, spend a lot of time with the girls. And it's been a great experience no matter what team I had. Just want to talk about the first District 5 win. The first District 5 loss was devastating. I had an uncle who went to that game, and he said he was never going back to another basketball game, and he didn't. Boys or girls, never went back. It was completely devastating. I can remember being back at school after we got back, and it was awful. But they were determined to get back there again, and it was a great feeling to get back there. Basically, a rematch, same teams, same players. It was a complete rematch, same players. And to be able to win, we scouted and we scouted, and we knew what they did, and the kids pulled it out. Just a comment, but after the game, we got a trophy, but they didn't have the plaque prepared. So they had like District 5, and then on the back it said District 6. And the athletic director or whoever was in charge said, your trophies are back in the room. So we went back in the room, and Lucy and I went back, and there's a box back there, but the trophy's still in the box, not even put together. They're all in the stuff, keep it. So we sat there and screwed all the trophies together, and I don't know, I thought they'd passed them out the year before, but so we screwed them all together, and we got on the bus and passed them out. So that's how far we've come, and we didn't have a big ceremony. And then the other thing was that we were playing in the fall, and then we had to wait until March to do the state championship, to play in the states. And so we had like 2 or 3 weeks to practice. Well, we couldn't really be at the top of our game after 2 or 3 weeks when the other teams were playing all winter. They played all winter. So I think we could have won if we were playing all winter. Thanks to the JVs, the people who sat on the bench and made every varsity player work hard. And sometimes we abused them, they'd hit them, foul them hard. So we appreciated that. Also, another comment we talked about was, I had the team that followed the District 5 team, sometimes I think they felt intimidated. Maybe it's expecting them to win another District 5 or something. But Trina reminded me, we won too, and they did win. But they were great singers. We sang a lot on the bus. John Denver songs, I mean, they were good. So it was fun. We had a lot of fun playing. Also want to remember Jan Winter, part of that District 5 team, who passed away. She was the most unselfish, kind person you'd ever want to meet. She rarely got into a game, but she was the most supportive, loyal person to her teammates anyone could possibly be. Very, very kind person. Another team I just want to mention was a team that we went to, we were playing a consolation game for third place. No one thought we'd win. We went to Wimber to play. I think we had 5 fans there. No one expected us to win, and we won. Oh, had to go play in the States. So, of course, I didn't expect to win the consolation. Went to the States, won in the States. Lights went out even while we were playing, but we won in the States. Maybe that's why we won. I don't know. Then we went to World City, but I said we wouldn't talk about that, right? That's another story. A lot of teams, every team along the way had their things that we enjoyed. The last team I coached, Angie's here from that team. I don't know if there's anyone else. They were just a joy to watch play. I don't even think I coached them. I think they just knew what they were doing. We had some of the players understood the game really well, and they just went out and played. And we should have won the district that year, I guess. If maybe I'd done a better job. We played for the district championship. They were just a joy to watch the play. I really appreciate them. That was my last game before I quit again. So I had some outstanding players, outstanding people. I just want to thank you all for coming. It was overwhelming that all of you showed up. It's overwhelming that you stayed. I'm thinking, you're thinking like, I had a player, I have to tell the story, Sherry. I had a player who was sitting on the bench beside me, and Kathy, you'll appreciate this, was Stephanie Mills. And she was sitting there, and those games going on and on and on and on. When someone was really far ahead, I hope it was us. And she was sitting there, and after a bit, she looked at me and said, "What time is it?" I don't know if we're playing a basketball game. I don't know what time it is, so that's what you're probably thinking. I also want to say one thing about another player I had was Isella Swope, now known as Darlene Dishong, who started the elementary program at Southern Fulton. And what a contribution she has made to the basketball program at Southern Fulton. We didn't have a starter program when I was coach. We didn't have anyone coming up. You had to learn the basics. I can remember teaching Darlene how to do a layup, right, left, hop, shoot. So she took her love of basketball and has made a huge contribution to the Southern Fulton program. So again, I can't tell you kids how much, I call you kids, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you all showing up. Family, my family here, and friends from the church and community, and Carole, we played with Carole. Some of my teams of people I played with. It's amazing to see you all here, and I thank you so much for coming. Thank you for taking your time.
Coach Palmer, we have something else. When she got on the bus in an away game, which they usually won, would the players please stand? Coach Palmer would take attendance, win or lose, then she'd tell the bus driver, go. And then the Southern Fulton Lady Indians would
Wow. I remember that team. First game I ever coached was against that team. I didn't know if I was ever going to score a point in that game. It was awful for Ford's Road. It was great for Southern Fulton. Some of you ladies back there did.
Because you remember, I was probably young and yelled and screamed and acted like a goof. But one of the things that's so neat about our county and our surrounding area is, as Carole and Audrey mentioned, you wanted to beat that team so bad, particularly in the county. But after the game, you go over, Carole and I'd talk, Audrey and I'd talk, you know, and I'm sure they did the same thing. It was just the way you did it. And everybody respected everybody else, and it was a lot of fun. All right, that brings us now to our final inductee of the evening, and this guy's name is Mr. Larry Palmer. He is associated with Carole Palmer, as you all well are aware. I want to thank Larry for asking me to be his presenter. I've known Larry for an awful long time, and so I'm going to go ahead and share some information with him. Some of it you may already know, some of it might be new to you. Larry was born in 1943, and he graduated from Southern Fulton in 1961. He attended Slippery Rock for 1 year, and while he was there, he lettered in soccer, which kind of was amazing to me, because I thought, well, that's crazy. And then he went to Penn State. I'm not sure why he transferred to Penn State, because I know Slippery Rock's got a great health and physical education program, and I don't know, and I think, and Audrey read about Carole's bio, she graduated from Penn State. So I don't know if there was some connection there or not, Larry. I'll have to let you talk about that later on when you talk up here. But anyway, he received his master's from Shippensburg, got his principal's certificate and his superintendent's letter, and he also did graduate work at Penn State. He started teaching elementary phys ed in Maryland, and he was there for 1 year, and then he was hired at Southern Fulton in 1966, I believe. While at Southern Fulton, he started out with elementary phys ed, then he was health and phys ed at the high school, then he became a head teacher at the high school. He was athletic director during that time, and then he was principal until about the year 2000. While Larry was an administrator for Southern Fulton, he was involved in a lot of different activities with the school and also within the community. He was also involved with IU11 on different committees, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and did some studies with Penn State University. Larry was very active in all sports while he attended Southern Fulton. If you look through the yearbook, you'll see he was involved. If they had a sport, you'll see Larry's picture there, and he kind of stood out. I noticed that when I was looking at it. He was the first basketball player that we believe in Fulton County to score 1,000 points, and he ended up his career with 1,375 points. Now, that was back in the day when you were lucky if you had an 18-game schedule. At one time, you were playing 20 and 24 games. And that was also back in the day when that little 19-foot 9-inch arc was not on the floor. So he did that without any of that. When he started teaching at Southern Fulton, he was involved in coaching track, baseball, basketball. He actually worked with Herb, I believe, and then when Herb left, he became the varsity basketball coach in 1968. I hope I have the years right. And he continued to coach boys basketball until 1992. Larry's team won 308 games, and in 1986, his team won the school's first District 5 championship for boys. Okay, ladies, you got the 75, he got the 86. And I remember that game distinctly because I was there. I wasn't coaching the boys. A guy by the name of Dave Hoover, who should be up here emceeing this, but he left us a few years ago. But anyway, I can remember that game, and Larry's team won and defeated them in the Bedford High School gym. In fact, yeah, we got a Bedford guy here too. In their program, when they celebrated, there was an article, and I want to read it to you. It says, "From the Indian Basketball Banquet, states the championship story began with an overtime 63-62 victory over Hyman." So, and then that concluded with another overtime victory over county rival Forbes Road. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about that story. Anybody here at that game? Do you remember that game? We had a guy from Forbes Road who was on the foul line. The game is tied. And I don't bet, but if I were a betting man, I would have bet $100. Back in that day, I probably didn't even have $100. That this guy's going to hit the foul shots, and Forbes Road's going to win the championship. Doink, doink, overtime. And there was a guy in overtime, and I don't know if he scored all the points or just the ones I remember, but a guy by the name of Wally Yanisic, and Larry's team ended up victorious. And Larry said at the banquet, "I'm just happy for the kids. We have had tremendous fan support. We've had some good ball players down through the years. This win was for them too." That's the type of attitude that Larry had as he coached at Southern Fulton. That's the type of fan support that they had at Southern Fulton. Did I say had? Did anyone go to a Southern Fulton game this year and see the Shanksville game down there? Wasn't a pleasant ending for Southern Fulton, but did you see the fans? The fan support for Southern Fulton has just been fabulous over the years, and the coaching has been great also. And Larry's teams went on to compete in several other state PIA playoffs. After Larry retired from coaching, he was still involved in athletics. He became a member of the PIA District 5 committee. He also, and back in 1993, I believe, he served as a District 5 treasurer, which, Larry, you still are, right? Okay, Paul didn't take that from you yet. He's been doing the District 5 golf tournament. He also worked the District 5 softball tournament and in charge of the District 5 girls basketball tournament. Some of Larry's community involvement has been his service to the Fulton County for Families Board, for the Fulton County Partnership Board, for the Fulton County Medical Center Board, the Sunday school teacher for Buck Valley Church for many years, and he's been a church elder at that same church for about 12 years. In Larry's spare time, he enjoys gardening, fishing, and hunting. Now, Larry got his superintendent certificate, and he wanted to become a superintendent. So fortunately for me and many other people at the northern end of the county, Forbes Road hired him. And we were delighted to have Larry as our new superintendent. And he enjoyed that position until his retirement in 2006. During his time at Forbes Road, he was able to lead the board in the completion of the construction of a new, a new high school building. This was a difficult task with many obstacles, but with Larry's leadership and the school board and staff's willingness to work with him, the new Forbes Road High School, along with a larger gym and a new auditorium, was completed and opened in the fall of 2004. And I'd like to read you this quote, and I'll tell you who quoted it at the end. "Larry came to Forbes Road as superintendent during a busy time of construction of the new high school. He was a good guy to work for, and he did a great job working with the board and bringing the auditorium and school to fruition. He demonstrated his class to Cardinal fans, and Larry, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I do. During his time as Southern Fulton's head coach, he addressed the Forbes Road crowd in the barn. Some of you remember the old gym in the barn, and that would have been a Forbes Road Southern Fulton game when Larry was still coaching, and that was when you packed them in and there was hardly room to sit. And he spoke as we gave credit to a guy by the name of Robin Fight. They retired his shirt that night and hung it up, and Larry talked against a big rival game. For him to take time and to be that interested in a county school doing something like that, it's amazing. He spoke of how Robin's career at Forbes Road, he knew Robin personally, and of his performances, particularly against Larry's team. And this is a quote from longtime principal, Mr. James Harrell. So Larry, when I got to know Larry, I knew Larry as a player, and I really didn't like him much then. I got to know Larry when I was coaching, and I liked him a little bit better then. He seemed to be a pretty good guy. And then when he came to Forbes Road, he sort of became a Cardinal. I really liked Larry. He was a good guy then. But I can remember, and I can't imagine too many school districts do this. And maybe not many do it now because you teachers that are still here teaching know that you have so much little free time. We used to actually have fun when we taught. And so one of the first things everybody that was involved in our little club got to school early in the morning, probably 7 o'clock, and Larry was there too, driving his little Chevy, whatever that little thing was. I don't know how he fit in it. And there would be the superintendent, Mr. Palmer, the principal, Mr. Hero, whom I just mentioned. There would be a gentleman by the name of Gay Fleck, who taught at Forbes Road for 44 years. There was myself, taught there 35 years. Another teacher when he could get up in time, Delbert Ritchie. And then we had our mainstay of Ubi Homan and Ellis Knepper, custodial staff. So we had from the superintendent down to the custodial staff sitting around. Usually Larry or Jim, Mr. Hero, would make the coffee for us, and we would sit around and talk about what we were going to do that day. We had some great times. One of the things, and bring Larry up here, was we used to, in the wintertime, we would have this planned. And Gay would say, well, what was the temperature of your place, Craig? I'd say 32. And then he'd say, Larry, what'd you have? And Larry'd say, I had 30. And finally, he'd let Alice Knepper go. And Alice would say, well, I had 29. And he'd always let one teacher go last. And after Alice would say his, someone else would always have 1 degree less than Alice. And Alice could never figure out why it was so cold at Southern Fulton when Larry beat him out of that. So, but anyway, that's some of the memories that I have of Larry working at Forbes. And I have fond memories when I played and when I coached at his school, even though I was coaching against his wife. And again, I didn't have real fond memories some of those nights either. But anyway, at this time, I would like to welcome Larry Palmer to the stand to accept his award as a member of the 3rd class of the Fulton County Hall of Fame. Larry has dedicated his entire life to the improvement of our county through all of his activities.
Well, Craig was talking about he didn't like me too well at one time. When I was a rookie coach in 1969, Craig was a senior, and I didn't like him too well either because he had kind of tortured the Southern Fulton Indians. We had 2 really good basketball games that year, his senior year. We lost by 3 or 4 points up at Forbes, mainly because of Craig and all the points he scored. And when they came to Southern, I told one of my players, whenever he shoots his first shot, make sure you foul him hard. And my player did. He fouled him hard, shot went in, he gets up the foul line, makes another one. The player called timeout, came over, said, what are we going to do now, coach? Well, during the whole game, Craig scored his usual 20-some points, and we lost by another 3 points. So I didn't care much for Craig that year because of his ability on the floor. In fact, we had heard like a couple of weeks before graduation that he might be a course or 2 short. So I said, well, we better go up and scout the graduation, make sure he walks across the stage and gets his diploma. But I knew he was going to get it because he had already been accepted at Slippery Rock, and I knew he was going to go to school. But Craig, for Fulton County, was an excellent basketball player, and we had a lot of trouble getting him stopped during his senior year. And as he said, the longer I got to be around Craig, the better guy I found out he was. And when I was up at Forbes as superintendent, I couldn't have asked for more support. And as he said, the meetings we had in the morning before school were just great. We had a fantastic time. So thanks, Craig, for the introduction. I'm going to be brief because we've been here a long time. I do want to thank the Hall of Fame committee who just put in hour after hour of work to get this banquet set up in this Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And especially, I want to thank this lady down here, Kathy Kendall. When Kathy does something, as most of you know, she wants perfection. And I would say, Kathy, you got pretty close tonight. So thanks to you for all you do. You just put in tremendous work, tremendous hours. So thanks a lot. And one other person who Craig mentioned isn't with us any longer. That's Dave Hoover. Back in about 2010, Dave and I were on the Center for Families board, and we talked about this Hall of Fame, getting a committee together and doing this. And about 2 months after that meeting, we had another meeting, and Dave and I usually sat together, and Dave said, well, after this meeting, we got another meeting. I said, we do? He said, we're going to kick off this Hall of Fame. So we had a meeting, and I think that's when it started. So as most of you here, I'm sure knew Dave Hoover, and he is surely missed in this community, all Fulton County, and beyond. Talking a little bit about my coaching. As I alluded to, I started in '69 after I'd served as JV coach and assistant to Mr. Hardin, and he was a good mentor because we kind of hit the ground running. We didn't win all of our games the first year, but we had a very good year. We couldn't beat Forbes, but still we had a good year. I've had a lot of really good basketball players down through the years. Back at that time, Fulton County was known for having good shooters. We didn't have a lot of size, but we had people who could shoot the ball. Not only at Southern, but McConnellsburg had them, and Forbes Road did also. So it was competitive, but we respected our opponents, and although it was tough, we had to accept defeat from time to time. It's much better to win, but even though when you do win, you have a feeling for your opponent who lost. So getting back to my players, I got a few here tonight, not many, but I would have to say that 99% of the players I coached have been very successful in life. And really that means more to me that they're successful in life than what they accomplished on the basketball court. But hopefully what they accomplished on the basketball court kind of set the stage for them during their life. So I'm very appreciative. My teams always played hard. They worked hard in practice. Even the teams that won the least amount of games, they practiced and played as hard as they could. So you could not take anything away from them. It's great to see this turnout tonight. All the Southern Fulton people who are here tonight, I just can't thank you enough for coming. We've got family members here, and I appreciate them being here. I wish our two boys and their family could be here, but they couldn't make it. Wife Carole, I appreciate her. She's put up with me. It'll be 55 years in July, so we've been together a long time. So thank you, Carole. And it's getting late, so I'm going to close with my remarks. And again, I'm humbled. My wife Carole is humbled for the experience of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And once again, I want to thank all of you for coming, and especially I want to thank the committee and Kathy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for a nice evening. And before we go, and again, this scares me because I'm going to turn this microphone over to Mrs. Kendall. But anyway, we have some door prizes. So if you're still here, you have a chance to win all kinds of good stuff that's up here in front of us. So Mrs. Kendall. And by the way, when Mrs. Kendall gets done with her door prizes, we would like to call all the inductees back up here for a photo.
We'd like to thank everybody. We'd like to congratulate. We need all the inductees up here, please. All the inductees. And you don't want to miss this. We want to give them one more round of applause. Come on up.